Longest military missions in the world, a non-stop 33-hour flight by this B-52 strategic bomber group to the other side of the world.
Plane flying over the South China Sea.
We're getting a close-up look at a Chinese fighter jet. The aircrew here identifies it as a J-11,
Will Torreson shows the network of man-made islands China built on what had been coral reefs, claimed by other countries.
What happens when China decides to test America's stealth edge by firing on a $2 billion bomber flying in international airspace? That's exactly what happened when an HQ-29 Neo interceptor went after a B-2 Spirit. The chase lasted less than a minute, but it launched a chain of decisions that would echo for weeks. Because Washington's answer wasn't just aircraft on patrol, it was a layered, highly orchestrated strike designed to dismantle defenses in under 90 seconds. Stay with us to see how quickly one missile sparked an operation that tested the limits of modern deterrence. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A missile streaked out of the sky toward the most advanced bomber in the world, but it never reached its target. The aircraft under threat was the B-2 Spirit, often called the Ghost Bomber, a machine designed to slip across borders without ever being seen. Each one costs more than $1 billion to build, and their survival is part of America's nuclear deterrence. On this patrol over open waters, its crew believed the radar horizon was their shield. That belief collapsed in a single flash of ignition from the Chinese coastline.
The leadership of China, what do they react to? We see that they publicly comment about our Bomber Task Force missions.
that they say is armed with air-to-air missiles, and it's been shadowing this U.S. Navy plane now for about 15 minutes.
The Chinese pilot never responds, but eventually leaves when the U.S. plane turns south.
The launch belonged to the HQ-29 Neo, a long-range interceptor designed to target stealth aircraft, pushing Mach speeds within seconds. It climbed into the clouds with a clear lock, crossing international boundaries in its vector. The warhead was aimed at a bomber previously thought untouchable, an aircraft built to evade detection, not duel with anti-air missiles head-on. The violation itself carried a political weight. Firing at a U.S. bomber in neutral air made clear the level of Chinese determination. The danger wasn't theoretical. The HQ-29 Neo could reach its target in less than a minute once locked. So when that missile stabilized on its course, the old assumption of invisibility was shattered.
00, Delta Hotel 776.
Along the way, picking up fuel from a flying gas station.
American aircraft, this is the PLA Air Force. You are approaching Chinese airspace.
The B-2 is a giant in the sky, yet designed to be a ghost, invisible to the eye of radar. What the world was about to see in those 42 seconds was a contest between a missile racing against time and an aircraft designed to appear as nothing more than background noise. Imagine standing in the dark, trying to catch a shadow with a flashlight. Every time you swing the beam, the shadow bends and stretches, never settling where you expect it. That's exactly what radar faces when it tracks a stealth target. The B-2's curves and radar-absorbing materials don't erase its presence, but scatter and bend the signal until the reflection is too weak to give a precise return.
Ignoring competing claims from countries like Vietnam and the Philippines.
From militarized artificial islands to fighter jets and warplanes, China's heavy presence in the disputed region is putting the U.S. and its allies on notice.
The plane is headed past the self-governing island of Taiwan, which China claims as its own.
This is what engineers mean when they say low observable. It doesn't make the bomber disappear. It makes it nearly impossible to pin down. Research across decades shows how stealth design scatters and deflects radar pulses instead of reflecting them back to the source. In practical terms, it forces radars to work with scraps of data, partial outlines, distorted echoes, or phantom blips that move unpredictably. Interceptors like the HQ-29 rely on this information to adjust mid-course. If the signal stream degrades, the missile's brain struggles to forecast the target path correctly. Meanwhile, the clock was running. At Mach 5, a kilometer shortened every fraction of a second. The crew inside the B-2 had no warning lights, no alarm screaming about the inbound hit.
Another Friday afternoon in South China Sea.
The U.S. Navy invited CNN to fly on a P-8 reconnaissance.
Keep a safe distance or you'll be intercepted.
That's when the Chinese People's Liberation Army fighter jet appears, flying so close you...
Stealth means flying blind to what watches from far away. And on this night, the enemy's missile was already closing ground rapidly. In less than a minute, its warhead could have ripped apart a machine whose price tag equals the budget of a small nation. Military planners knew that destruction wouldn't just be the loss of a plane, it would strike at the entire doctrine built on invisibility. As the missile approached within lethal range, the silence broke in a way even its designers did not expect. It detonated early, its warhead showering lethal fragments into empty night short of the target. Neither crew nor ground operators intended the blast. The fusing system, relying on degraded guidance data, triggered the warhead before impact. What was supposed to be a kill became an embarrassing miss. That near kill didn't end the story. Washington treated the shot not as a warning, but as an act of war. Within hours, it set in motion a counter-operation, one that would draw on deception, electronic suppression, and surprise in a way not seen in years. How do two bombers silently dismantle a $350 million air defense grid in under 2 minutes without being seen?
We're refueling in midair right now and flying just about 40 feet away from a KC-135 tanker plane.
To the South China Sea, which China also claims almost all for itself.
That question drove the mission planners inside the Pentagon. The same night, the B-2 Spirit narrowly avoided destruction. The response had to be swift but calculated. Washington authorized a counter-operation called Iron Dagger, one that relied not on brute force, but on timing, misdirection, and stealth precision. The task was clear: blind the very defenses that had just fired the HQ-29 Neo, and do it so quickly that Beijing would be left stunned rather than ready. China believed its coastal air shield was almost untouchable. More than 24 radar stations scanned from the shoreline, each overlapping in coverage to reduce blind spots. Surface-to-air missile sites ringed the approaches, with interceptors dug into hardened positions guarded by command bunkers. These defenses were built with one adversary in mind: the United States Air Force. From the ground commander's point of view, a system this dense could detect anything approaching from hundreds of miles away. Yet belief in scale was about to meet reality in practice. Operation Iron Dagger flipped the script. Rather than send bombers directly into surveillance corridors, American planners designed a deception game. Using advanced decoys, they intended to project signals that resembled the radar signature of heavy B-52 bombers. These were not real aircraft, but electronic ghosts created to trick Chinese radar operators into focusing on the wrong threat. The B-2 Spirits assigned to the strike would use that distraction to slip into firing position unnoticed. At the center of the decoy plan were MAL-J transmitters, small pods capable of broadcasting emissions identical to those of actual bombers. In practice, this meant China's sensors saw a formation of lumbering, high-altitude aircraft where none existed. The operators had no reason to doubt the images. The pattern, altitude, and even spacing mimicked standard American flight tactics. Believing a squadron of B-52s was on approach, defensive grids prepared interceptors to meet them head-on. While the attention shifted to the north, the true strike force moved silently along a low, observable corridor, identified through months of mapping. The electronic veil extended further when EA-18G Growlers began transmitting tailored jamming pulses. These pulses didn't just drown out radar, they targeted specific frequencies known to be essential for guidance uplinks between radars and missile batteries. Each Growler escorted the Spirits like invisible shields, leaving the bombers masked even as they drifted closer to the coast. The strike itself was measured down to the second. The B-2s each carried precision-guided ordnance designed to collapse radar facilities in one strike. First targets were early warning dishes, the eyes of the defense grid. Without them, intercept missiles became blind weapons. Within seconds of those blasts, secondary bombs tore through HQ-29 Neo launch batteries, turning missile canisters into erupting fireballs. Every action was layered with purpose, designed to sever the command chain before retaliation was possible. 88 seconds was all it took. By the time dust and flames covered the horizon, several radar towers had folded to the ground. Command bunkers burned beneath collapsing steel, and storage yards detonated in long arcs of orange light. Ammunition depots lit the night sky as sympathetic explosions raced through stacks of warheads. Within less than 2 minutes, a defense system worth hundreds of millions lay shredded, unable to track, communicate, or retaliate. A 42-second missile chase, followed by an 88-second bombing run, changed more than the course of a mission. It rattled the entire balance of power in the South China Sea. Deterrence shifted from long standoffs to moments measured in heartbeats, where sudden escalation can outpace negotiation. The question now is whether the next clash between stealth and interception unfolds even faster, leaving no window for words. When seconds decide strategy, regional stability becomes fragile. Tell me in the comments, do you think stealth superiority will still dominate the next decade, or will interceptor technology finally catch up?